Hi, my name is Robin Arnold, and I am here today to talk about healthy boundaries and how we can have those in our daily lives. I am an LPC, which is a licensed professional counselor, and I have some areas that I think that would benefit us all. So today we're going to cover 5 different areas. What are healthy boundaries? Why do we need those healthy boundaries in our everyday lives? 5 types of boundaries, how to establish those healthy boundaries, and then the cream of the crop is how to say no. Sometimes that's very hard for us. So we're going to cover each of those areas, and then we'll go on from there. So what are healthy relationship boundaries? Boundaries on a highway keep us safe. Relationship boundaries can be a little tricky because we don't have those road signs to keep us in line like we do on a highway. So it gets a little difficult. A boundary is a clear line that tells us where to stop. It can define where one thing ends and where one thing begins. Setting boundaries helps us to know what is expected in the relationship. Boundaries show us how we can respect each other's personal space, comfort levels, and our limits. Boundaries can look very different in every relationship, and we have different relationships in our lives. We have unique relationships with our friends, our coworkers, family, and romantic partners. So the amount of emotion that you express with family members may look different than the amount of emotion you express with your coworkers. So we have different relationships and different boundaries for each of those particular areas. Whatever the relationship, we need to respect existing boundaries and give each other space to set new limits. In healthy relationships, both people have healthy self-esteem and are able to both be vulnerable and assert their boundaries. They feel free to think, feel, and act independently. They are their own people. So why do we need healthy boundaries in our lives? Boundaries are really a form of self-care. They're a way of taking care of our mental health and ensuring that our well-being is respected by others around us. For example, knowing your partner's boundaries can help them feel safe to open up to you too, to feel comfortable. From there, true connection and intimacy can bloom, and it can be an awesome relationship. Without boundary setting, relationships can be tough. Speaking up for yourself and giving others the opportunity to do the same can allow for better mental health for everyone. And we all want that and need that in our lives. So the 5 types of boundaries are emotional boundaries, intellectual boundaries, physical boundaries, financial boundaries, and sexual boundaries. So emotional boundaries have to do with being clear on what is yours in your feelings and what is someone else's. That is so important. Your emotions and well-being is yours and yours alone. It's not someone else's. You can't change the way they feel. They can't change the way you can feel. You're responsible for it. These boundaries help us to show empathy without absorbing the other person's feelings. An example of that would be a parent. Emotional boundaries can mean not letting the mood that your teenager or your significant other is in affect you. That is theirs and theirs alone, and being able to see that differentiation between the two. Another emotional boundary can be not getting upset when your partner doesn't follow you into that pit of despair when you're watching the news or you hear something or your sister or family member says something to you and you're just devastated, and then wanting that partner to join you in that devastation. That's yours and yours alone. And so figuring out what to do with that and how to. Intellectual boundaries. Everyone has different beliefs, ideas, values. Intellectual boundaries help us to respect one another's different viewpoints. This is important so that we don't expect in our relationships to share the same opinions or to adopt all the same views, and vice versa. Even if you disagree with your coworkers, that's a different relationship. Even if you disagree with your coworkers or loved ones, you still need to know that they have the right to have their own intellectual thoughts and ideas about things, and being able to respect that, and vice versa. Physical boundaries. We all have different comfort levels when we interact with others with physical touch, and some people may be more comfortable with hugs in the workplace, for example. Others may not appreciate physical touch at all in any context. Speaking up about your physical boundaries at work or with family or friends is very important, so they know where you are with things. Even if you can't understand your boundaries, if others can't understand your boundaries, you have the right to do what makes you feel comfortable and not what makes others feel comfortable. Financial boundaries. Conversations about money are always tough and difficult. If your friends constantly choose expensive restaurants to go out and eat, there may need to be a conversation about, hey, I really want to go with everyone, but can we choose somewhere that's more affordable? So being able to speak up for yourself, being able to say how you're feeling about that. And then last but not least is sexual boundaries. When it comes to physical intimacy, sexual boundaries should not be ignored. Discussing what's off limits and what kind of contact you prefer is needed to develop a trusting relationship so you can feel comfortable in those situations. Setting sexual boundaries also includes prioritizing consent and being able to speak, yes, I agree with this, or we should do this, or no, I'm not comfortable with this. So being able to speak for yourself, and ultimately also listening to our partner. How to establish healthy boundaries. Number one, begin establishing your boundaries early on in your new relationships. Example, in a new job, making it clear that you plan for certain time off, or that, okay, at 5 o'clock, whenever the day ends, I'm going home, and not pulling all of this information out. Even with a new friend, being able to establish early on what kind of emotional support that you need from them, letting them know where you are and what you need. Number two, learning from mistakes made and take it as an opportunity to set a new boundary. If you have a fight or misunderstanding with a friend, it's a perfect time to be vulnerable and share your needs. You can always start fresh, meaning that we're learning as we go through these relationships, and we may encounter something and it's like, oh my goodness, we need to address this. And even if your relationship is 1 week or 1 year or 10 years, being able to say, hey, we need to talk about this. Number three, strengthen your communication skills and articulate your feelings clearly. Get used to saying no and practice it often. Sometimes it's hard for us to say no, and we're going to talk about that in the next slide, but sometimes it's what's needed. And last but not least, number four, take a moment to think about your boundaries. Try writing those down in a journal and consider why you have those. Like, what need in you is trying to be met? So write those down and reflect on those. This will help you to stay strong if others resist your boundaries and kind of push or test those boundaries. So our next slide is a really important slide, and I'm going to try to explain it as we go through it. The name of the slide is Our Way of Being, and this was done by Huffington Post. And a lot of times we have difficulty with saying no. And we have a tendency to say yes because we associate saying yes with being kind and loving. And we have a tendency to think of no as being mean or cruel. And so really kind of looking at this a little more in depth. Sometimes us saying no is being assertive, and it's the best thing that's called for in that situation. So if you look at this slide, the upper left, you'll see two columns, one that says soft behaviors and one that says hard behaviors. In the upper left is the yes column. So these soft behaviors, these loving intentions that we feel like we have as mothers, as significant others, as employees. So the soft loving is the yes. Yes, I'll listen to you. Yes, I'm giving you that toy that I know you've been wanting. Yes, you may go out. I will give you my trust and let you go out with your friends again. That yes, that we may not really want to say, but we feel compelled to say because we want to be perceived as kind and loving. The opposite of that is kind of diagonal down. It's the hard no, and that's what we think of as the hard no. And our nature is to try to stay away from that usually. So the hard selfish is the name of that column. The no, it's the screaming, the yelling, the holding a grudge, physical violence even, trying to force someone to change, saying no because you're mad. So that is that extreme. And we're going to kind of move up to the top right-hand corner. And that is a little different. That's the sure, go ahead and watch TV till 2 in the morning, whatever, I'm going to bed. That's the fine, I'll buy you that candy as we're going through the cash register. And I just don't want to hear the fussiness and the temper tantrum that you may be throwing as a child. The yes, because I'm too nervous to say no. Like, yeah, sure, I'll do that because I'm in a group of friends and I don't feel like I can speak my truth. That's what I call that. The bottom left hand is something it's the hard loving. And it is hard. It is hard to do some of these things, but it's the saying to your child, no more TV. It's time to read a book. Let's put that up. Yes, you must brush your teeth. In order to have good dental hygiene, you need to do that. No, you can't buy that toy right now. Christmas is coming up or your birthday's coming up, and I know this, and I don't want you to go ahead and purchase that. This is not working out anymore. It's not the behavior, but where your heart is. It's doing the hard stuff. It's saying no and being assertive because you know it's what's best in that situation.